And item 8R is our budget amendment, and this is an opportunity for us to look at some additional dollars that have come in beyond expectations, and I've asked the city manager to kind of give us a kind of a brief overview of the options presented. But here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to, I guess, go around the council, allow each council member to discuss whatever they want to talk about. They want to talk about one of them or all 5 of them, they can. That way we don't get into whoever makes the first motion first gets a vote. I'd rather see where the sentiment goes, and then we can take a motion where it appears the consensus is. Okay. Ed?
I want to back up just a second and take the 30,000-foot view of addressing what Larry talked about in terms of priorities and what Pat talked about in terms of a dedicated source of funding. This seems like an awkward method. I agree that we need more police officers with Chief City's recommendations, and I think on a utilitarian scale it's hard to argue that the greatest good for the greatest number of people would be satisfied by increasing police officers. But to go year to year and, depending on what last month's sales tax revenues are, make decisions that then could be reversed or without having a dedicated source of funding seems like a inefficient way of doing things. And so I would think it sounds like to us and to the citizens, as you pointed out, it's streets, public safety, transit. These are all high priorities, both for our city and cities across the country. So I question why we don't have dedicated sources of funding for those, and yet we have dedicated sources of funding, for an example, for the zoo. In 1989, we passed a 1/8 cent sales tax. 1/8 of every penny of everything that's bought in Oklahoma City goes to the zoo. That's the one entity that could consistently and does get private donations, private citizens and corporations. They will fund the zoo. You're not going to get private donations for transit. You're not going to get private donations for police officers. So in my mind, over the next year, it's time to look at the 1/8 cent sales tax on the zoo. At the same time, a significant portion of our hotel and motel tax goes to the fairgrounds. So you have a dedicated source of funds for the fairgrounds. Well, we decided as part of MAPS 3 that we would give a $50 million cash infusion to the fairgrounds. So after a $50 million cash infusion to the fairgrounds, does the fairgrounds still need the same percentage of the hotel motel tax? And could that be a source of funds? I think if you take this to a vote of the people and you say we need more police officers, Red Chief City saying we need as much as 200 police officers, we would like to have this dedicated source of funds to police officers and have the people choose between more police officers or spending $8 to $10 million a year of dedicated source of funds to the zoo or the fairgrounds after the taxpayers just gave a $50 million cash infusion to the fairgrounds. I think that they would vote for the police officers. That's just my gut feeling. And we wouldn't have this debate every year. And that problem would go away. And then we could address some other things. And then we could debate how much this year of excess funds we want to give to the zoo instead of more central core, our core business, which is public safety. That would have been taken care of. And then extra funds, we can talk about the zoo. I'm not sure how this got into, and this is why I wanted to delay the budget vote, or I didn't want to pull Sunday bus service. I don't think anything you pull out and having a 1-to-1 against police, extra police, is going to win. You could take anything we did in the budget this year, extra IT, and vote on extra IT versus more police officers, and more police officers is going to win. I mean, if we set things up like this, where it's a choice between police or X is always going to lose. Doesn't matter if it's Sunday bus service or anything. So I don't like the way that this has been brought as a this or that. And I'm not sure that we have to choose, that they're mutually exclusive and we have to choose between them. I don't think, without the Sunday bus service question, we find this $1.3 million, that we would have come back 1 week later and had spent $1.3 million on police. I think we're given a choice of spending $1.3 million on police because there's this bus service and they're being put up against each other. I don't understand why. It's clear the fund balance is going to be exceedingly high. and we're going to have $8 million to deal with. I'm not sure why we have this, choose this or that, knowing that there's $8 million more in July, and why we don't pull the fund balance into the discussion right now. That's $8 million. My personal view, we spent $8 million last year on street resurfacing. I mean, is this going to turn into an $8 million fund for street resurfacing? My personal view is that we got ourselves into this trouble in the 2007 bond. We're spending tens and tens of millions of dollars on street widening projects instead of street resurfacing, and that's why you're getting the low citizen happiness, and now we're trying to make up the difference by throwing $8 million. Why, you could do $1.5 million on transit, you could do police, you could do all three. I'm just saying they're not mutually exclusive. I just want to emphasize, and I know I'm going on, but I just want to emphasize that it's not just Sunday bus service. Pete alluded to this. It is revamping the whole bus service. We talked about, well, we don't know what the ridership is on Sundays. Well, we don't know what the ridership is on the Northwest Express route. Right? I mean, on May 8th, Rick gave a presentation. He talked about one idea might be a Northwest Express route. Pat asked him, well, what's the ridership? In the past, we've had that, and it didn't do very well. And Rick said, I don't know what the ridership is. I mean, where did that come from? Skip has expressed for support for a park and ride, which I think is a great idea, to have load people up in the morning and the evening. But where did a park and ride to Gaillardia come from? I mean, that's what we're doing. Memorial MacArthur, we're doing a park and ride outside the doors of Gaillardia. I mean, what is the ridership for that? And how did that get put into the budget? But Sunday bus service, even a limited form of it, like Meg's talking about, doesn't get put into. When 48% off the charts, 1 out of every 2 people who use the bus service are saying, what I want the most is Sunday bus service. And so we don't give even a limited form of Sunday bus service, but we have a park and ride out to Gaillardia with no vetting and no idea what the ridership is. We need to go to a grid system. We need to contract the system. That Northwest Express route is going the opposite direction. I would ask that, echoing what Pete said, that we spend one of our Tuesdays off and we have a workshop on what are our priorities, what is the 5-year plan, 10-year plan for our bus system? How are we going to tweak the inefficient bus system? And I understand the argument that you don't want to just throw more money at an inefficient, broken system. And so I would move, whether it's today or in 2 weeks, a resolution, hopefully somebody would second it, that we have a workshop on what exactly we want to do with our bus transit system. I have a question about whether the downtown bus station has the capacity to add more lines. I mean, we've talked about instead of Sunday bus service, we want to just add more lines. Does the downtown bus station have the capacity to do that if we want to expand our service? I mean, I believe there's a possibility it's at maximum capacity. So if you want to expand it, Sunday may be your best shot at that. I don't know how you could vote on police today without, as Pete talked about, we don't know what the union's going to think about mandating that these new hires work on the weekend. I mean, how can you vote on that today without, I mean, we're in negotiations now. I don't understand how we could do that today. As a compromise, Meg's idea of doing some kind of, the money's there, of doing some scaled down service on Sunday and taking your most popular lines and at least doing those on Sunday and seeing what your ridership is would seem to be a compromise.
Right.